Explore how traditional Chinese medicine, Taoism, Confucianism, Yin and Yang, and Buddhism offer unique perspectives on anxiety, depression, psychosis, and emotional well-being. Join Clinical Psychologist Dr. Hugo M. Gonzales as he explores China's ancient wisdom through a multipolar perspective, alongside modern evidence-based psychology, unworld, many traditions, a deeper understanding of the human mind.
One of the great Chinese philosophers, Lao Tzu, offered an idea that feels surprisingly relevant today. The point is not to romanticize difficulty or pretend that every obstacle is harmless. It is to notice where resistance consumes our energy and where a wiser response might create room to move. He taught that much of our suffering comes from struggling against life rather than learning to move with it. Taoism encourages us to live in harmony with the Tao, often translated as the way. It doesn't suggest that we avoid challenges or become passive. Instead, it reminds us that wisdom often comes from adapting rather than resisting. To move with life is not to surrender our values. It is to remain engaged while allowing circumstances, emotions, and new information to shape the next step we take. This idea is beautifully captured in the concept of Wu Wei, often translated as effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means responding wisely instead of reacting impulsively. Between an event and our response, there can be a moment of awareness. That moment does not remove choice from life. It helps us use choice with greater clarity. Imagine a river flowing around a rock. The river doesn't stop moving because of the obstacle. It simply finds another path. For someone living with anxiety, that's a powerful metaphor. Sometimes resilience isn't about controlling everything around us. Anxiety often asks us to solve uncertainty before we continue. Psychological flexibility offers another possibility. Acknowledge what is here, choose what matters, and allow the rest to remain unresolved. Sometimes it's about accepting uncertainty, focusing on what we can influence and letting go of what we cannot. Modern psychological therapies increasingly encourage these same skills through mindfulness, acceptance, and psychological flexibility. This does not mean that philosophy and psychotherapy are identical. Their methods, purposes, and forms of evidence differ. Yet, both can invite a person to relate differently to inner experience. Although the language is different, the destination is remarkably similar. As we continue our journey, another question naturally emerges. Emotional suffering can be loud and agitated, but it can also become quiet and heavy. Recognizing that difference helps us listen more carefully to what a person may be experiencing. What happens when emotional suffering doesn't appear as constant worry, but as overwhelming emptiness? Instead of a restless mind, a person may feel exhausted, disconnected, and unable to enjoy the things that once brought meaning to life. This is where our conversation turns to depression. A wider perspective should never minimize the seriousness of depression. It should help us see that effective care can include professional treatment while also attending to meaning, belonging, and daily life. Depression affects hundreds of millions of people worldwide and remains one of the leading causes of disability. Modern psychology and psychiatry have transformed the way we understand and treat depression through evidence-based therapies, medication, and comprehensive mental health care. Treatment can reduce suffering and restore functioning. Meaning can help a person understand what recovery is for. When care makes space for both, recovery is treated as more than simply returning to a previous state. These treatments have helped millions of people recover and continue to play an essential role in improving lives. At the same time, Chinese philosophy encourages us to widen our perspective and consider how relationships, purpose, and community influence emotional well-being. One of the most influential thinkers in Chinese history was Confucius. His teachings were never intended to be a form of psychotherapy, yet they offer profound insights into human flourishing. These ideas matter because they move beyond abstract theory. They ask how we speak, how we treat people who depend on us, and how our ordinary choices contribute to the kind of life we are building. Confucius believed that a meaningful life grows from healthy relationships, personal integrity, compassion, and a deep sense of responsibility toward others. In many ways, he reminds us that emotional well-being cannot be separated from the quality of our connections with family, friends, and the wider community. Connection is not only a comforting idea, it is part of the social environment in which emotional health develops. Small acts of attention can help counter the invisibility and disconnection that loneliness often brings. Today, psychologists recognize that loneliness and social isolation are significant risk factors for depression, while supportive relationships are among the strongest protective factors. Once again, we find ancient wisdom and modern research arriving at remarkably similar conclusions. Confucius also spoke about self-cultivation. This wasn't about becoming perfect or achieving success at any cost. Self-cultivation, therefore, has a different rhythm from self-optimization. It is not a demand to become impressive. It is a continuing practice of noticing our limitations and choosing again and again how we wish to respond. It was about continually developing patience, kindness, humility, wisdom, and moral character throughout life. Modern psychology reflects a similar idea. Recovery from depression often involves rebuilding routines, reconnecting with personal values, strengthening relationships, and gradually rediscovering meaning. Healing rarely happens overnight. More often, it comes through small, consistent steps that slowly restore hope. Within this wider tradition, suffering is not treated as proof of personal failure. It is approached as part of being human and as an invitation to develop a more compassionate relationship with experience. Another important influence on Chinese understandings of emotional well-being comes from Buddhism, which has shaped Chinese culture for many centuries. Every one of us will encounter loss, disappointment, illness, aging, uncertainty, and change. Rather than asking how we can eliminate every difficulty, Buddhism encourages us to ask how we can respond with wisdom and compassion. To observe an emotion is not to approve of it or to push it away. It is to create enough space to recognize its presence without allowing it to dictate every action. Practices such as meditation, mindfulness, gratitude, and loving kindness help people observe difficult emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. These practices have also influenced modern psychological approaches, including mindfulness based therapies that have demonstrated benefits for anxiety, depression, and emotional regulation. Once again, this isn't about replacing evidence based mental health care. Instead, it reminds us that alongside professional treatment, people often benefit from cultivating habits that strengthen awareness, resilience, and compassion. The collective perspective adds an important reminder. Independence can be valuable, but no one develops entirely alone. Our emotional lives are shaped through the relationships, duties, and communities we inhabit. Perhaps one of the most fascinating aspects of Chinese culture is its emphasis on the collective rather than the individual. While many Western societies celebrate personal independence, traditional Chinese culture has often emphasized family, community, and social harmony. Neither perspective is inherently better than the other, but together they remind us that human beings thrive through both personal growth and meaningful relationships. The value of these traditions is not that they offer a single answer to emotional suffering. It is that they invite us to hold several truths together. Care may be professional and personal, healing may be individual and relational, and resilience may involve both purposeful action and the wisdom to let life unfold. Modern psychiatry has made extraordinary advances in understanding psychosis. Evidence based care has transformed countless lives. Medication, psychotherapy, family education, and specialized mental health services remain essential. Anyone experiencing symptoms of psychosis should seek professional care. Historically, many cultures, including China, understood unusual psychological experiences through spiritual, philosophical, or symbolic frameworks. Families might seek elders, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, Buddhist monks, Taoist teachers, and community support. These relationships often offer people a language for distress, a sense of belonging, and practical support. A multipolar perspective respects these interpretations while recognizing the importance of modern psychiatric care. The strongest mental health care combines scientific evidence with cultural understanding, empathy, and respect for a person's background. As I reflect on China's contribution to mental health, one thought stands out. China does not offer a completely different answer from modern psychology. It asks many of the same questions through a different lens. It reminds us that emotional well-being is not simply about reducing symptoms. It is also about cultivating balance, nurturing relationships, living with integrity, and adapting to change. And it is about finding meaning even during life's greatest challenges. Perhaps this is what a truly multipolar understanding of mental health looks like. Not choosing between science and tradition or between East and West. Instead, it recognizes that every culture carries part of humanity's story. Modern psychology advances through scientific discovery, while China reminds us of community, purpose, compassion, and harmony. Together, these perspectives offer a richer understanding of what it means to care for the human mind. Thank you for joining me on this journey through China. I hope this episode has encouraged you to see mental health through a broader lens and appreciate the wisdom different cultures bring to healing. If you enjoyed this episode, Like, subscribe, and share Mindfield with others interested in psychology, culture, and the many ways people have sought healing. Your support helps us continue exploring the world's diverse healing traditions. Which country's approach should we explore next? Let us know in the comments. I'm Dr. Hugo M. Gonzales, and this is Mindfield, Healing Traditions of the World. One world, many traditions, a deeper understanding of the human mind. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of one another, and remember that every culture carries wisdom that can help us understand what it means to be human. By learning from one another with curiosity, humility, and respect, we can build a more compassionate and truly multipolar understanding of mental health.